Now we're looking at quadratic equations. Quadratic equations use the zero product rule as the most common way of solving them by factoring. So the zero product rule is if a times b equals 0, then a equals 0 or b equals 0. In order to get a 0, you have to multiply by 0. So one of the two things has to be 0. That also carries over if you had 3 things that were multiplied, 4 things that were multiplied, and so on. One of them has to be 0 in order to get a 0. If you take a look at the last sheet in your packet, you can see that here's a summary of factoring things. So when it asks you to factor, here's the remembering sheet on how that happens. So the greatest common factor, that was looking for something that was in common. Trinomials. Another way that you could have done trinomials is with the cross method, otherwise with guess and check. Okay, well, one of the two will work out fine for you. Okay, and so that easy, hard, and the perfect square ones. There's a difference. So when we take a look at what we have here in part A, we've got only 2 things. So I want to start with seeing if there's something in common. I always want to see if there's something in common first. So I look to see what's in common. There's a 3x in common. I divide 6x squared by 3x and I get 2x. Divide 3x by 3x, I get a 1. And that's equal to 0. I've got 2 things multiplied equal to 0, a zero product property. So I've got 3x equals 0, and I've got 2x plus 1 equals 0. 3x equal to 0 divided by 3. On this one, nice friendly equation. Subtract 1, divide by 2. X is equal to negative 1/2. Both of those work fine when I check them in the original problem. And so I'm good to go. The second one, part B. I again still only have 2 things, so I want to look for something in common first. There's nothing in common here, and so I want to take and look at this as a difference of squares. And I want to see if it's a difference of squares, and it actually is. Okay, because I've got 9x squared. That's 3x times 3x. 3x squared is 9x squared, and 1. Well, that's 1 squared. So the shortcut is that I get a minus and a plus in between. And if you want to do any other longer versions of this, then that's fine. So I've got 2 things multiplied equal to 0, zero product property. Add 1 to both sides. Divide by 3, I get x equals 1/3. Subtract 1 from both sides. And I get x equals negative 1/3. Plug those back in, and we're doing fine as far as checking, making sure these solutions come out correct. And the final one with factoring, keep in mind that when you're factoring, you want the number in front of the x squared to be a positive number. So there's a couple of different ways that you can do that. The first way is that you could divide out a negative 1. The other way is that you can move all of the information from the left side of the equation to the right side of the equation. So I can add x squared to both sides, and I can subtract 8x from both sides. And all of this information over here is going to cancel and give me a 0. And then if I write everything in descending order, I get x squared minus 8x plus 12. now I can go into factoring. This is a nice trinomial. So x times x will give me x squared. Multiplies to give me 12, but adds to give me negative 8. Well, that's a negative 6 and a negative 2. We've got two things multiplied equal to 0. Set them both equal to 0. Add 6 to both sides on this one. Add 2 to both sides on this one. So I get x equals 6 and x equals 2. Check those in my original problem, and we're doing fine using the zero product property. But we'll spend a little bit more time with factoring and solving these, but that is factoring with the zero product property in quadratic equations.